Before you trust the next pill you swallow, you need to hear this. Some of the medicines millions of people take every single day were never meant to be used long-term. Some stayed legal not because they're safe, but because banning them would disrupt billion-dollar systems. And some are doing damage so slowly that most people don't realize anything is wrong until it's too late. This isn't about fear. This isn't about rejecting medicine. This is about knowing what you're really taking. In this video, we're exposing 8 medicines that experts have repeatedly warned about. Medicines that should have been restricted, redesigned, or banned, but weren't. Not because the science was unclear, but because the system decided the risk was acceptable. If you've ever taken something assuming it was safe just because it was common, if you've ever trusted a label without reading the fine print, if you care about your long-term health more than temporary relief, you need to watch this until the end, because the last one affects almost everyone, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. If you value honest breakdowns without corporate filters, subscribe to the channel right now. And if you believe people deserve the truth about what they put into their bodies, hit like on this video. It helps this message reach others who need it. Now let's expose what no one warns you about, starting with the medicines you trust the most. Pain relievers that quietly damage your organs. Let's start with something almost everyone has taken without a second thought. Pain relievers. They're sold as harmless. They're kept next to candy at checkout counters. They're given to teenagers, athletes, office workers, and the elderly alike. And that's exactly the problem. These drugs are marketed as safe when used as directed, but that phrase hides a dangerous reality. As directed was never designed for how people actually use them. Most clinical trials for common pain relievers are short-term, days or weeks at most. But in the real world, people take them daily for joint pain, weekly for headaches, monthly for chronic inflammation, for years, sometimes decades. And that's where the damage begins. Long-term or repeated use has been linked in medical literature to progressive liver toxicity, reduced kidney function, increased risk of gastrointestinal bleeding, elevated cardiovascular stress. What makes this especially dangerous is that the damage is slow, silent, and often symptomless until it's advanced. Your liver doesn't scream when it's being overworked. Your kidneys don't send warning signals early on. They just adapt until they can't. Emergency departments across the world treat tens of thousands of cases every year related to pain reliever toxicity. And here's the uncomfortable part. Many of those patients did not overdose. They followed the label. So why aren't these medicines banned? Because regulators classify the harm as acceptable risk when compared to the pain they treat. But pain is temporary. Organ damage is not. Instead of restricting long-term use, the system normalized it. Instead of addressing why people are in constant pain, we taught them to silence it. Pain relievers didn't become dangerous because people abused them. They became dangerous because people were encouraged to depend on them. And that dependence is still being quietly monetized. 2. Cough and cold medicines that sell comfort, not cures. Now let's talk about something even more unsettling, because this one isn't about side effects. It's about effectiveness. Walk into any pharmacy during cold season, and you'll see entire aisles packed with brightly colored boxes promising fast relief, strong action, maximum strength, all-in-one solutions. But here's what most people don't realize. Multiple large-scale, peer-reviewed studies have shown that many popular cough and cold medications do not significantly outperform placebo for common viral infections. Read that again. They don't shorten the illness. They don't eliminate the virus. They don't meaningfully accelerate recovery. So what do? They create the illusion of treatment. Some suppress the cough reflex, not because the lungs are healed, but because the brain is chemically dulled. Others contain antihistamines that cause drowsiness, making you feel like you're resting better, while doing nothing to address the infection itself. You don't get better. You just feel different. And feeling different is often enough to keep people buying. Even more concerning is how these medicines are used in children. Parents give them expecting relief, unaware that many formulations are not recommended for young kids. Dosing errors are common. Side effects like agitation, rapid heart rate, or excessive sedation can occur. Regulatory agencies didn't ban these products when evidence questioned their effectiveness. Instead, they allowed them to stay, as long as they were labeled safe. Not effective, just safe. That's the loophole. These medicines exist not because they work well, but because they don't cause enough harm to justify removal. They sell comfort. They sell reassurance. They sell the feeling of control during illness. But medicine should treat disease, not emotions. And when an entire category survives on perception rather than performance, that's not healthcare. That's marketing. Acid-blocking drugs that disable a basic human function. These drugs are among the most prescribed medicines on Earth. They're given for heartburn, acid reflux, indigestion, just in case stomach discomfort. And they're often prescribed once and never stopped. Here's the uncomfortable truth most patients are never told. Stomach acid is not a design flaw. It is a defense system. It exists to break down protein, absorb minerals like magnesium, calcium, and iron, kill bacteria and pathogens before they reach the intestines. When you shut that system down long-term, you don't just stop acid, you interrupt digestion at a fundamental level. Short-term use? Often reasonable. Long-term use? That's where the risk multiplies. Medical studies have linked prolonged acid suppression to vitamin B12 deficiency, magnesium depletion, increased risk of gut infections, higher incidence of pneumonia, kidney damage, reduced bone density, and fractures. And none of this happens overnight. It happens quietly, over months and years, while patients are told, just keep taking it. Here's the most disturbing part. Many of these drugs were never approved for lifelong use. They were tested for weeks, maybe a few months. Yet millions of people remain on them for decades. Why aren't they banned? Because the harm is categorized as long-term association, not immediate danger. So instead of pulling them, regulators updated labels. Instead of reassessing prescriptions, doctors renewed them. Instead of addressing diet, stress, obesity, or eating habits, acid was chemically erased. The drug solved the symptom. The cause stayed untouched. And when the body adapts to low acid levels, stopping the drug often makes symptoms worse, trapping users in a cycle they never agreed to. That's not treatment. That's chemical dependency by design. Antibiotics that are destroying their own future. Antibiotics are one of the greatest medical breakthroughs in human history, and we are actively destroying their effectiveness. Not because they're bad drugs, but because they're used recklessly, routinely, and unnecessarily. Here's what most people don't realize. Antibiotics do nothing against viruses. No effect. Zero benefit. Yet they are still prescribed for colds, flu, viral sore throats. Just to be safe, infections. This is not ignorance. This is pressure. Doctors face time constraints, patient demands, fear of missing a rare complication. So antibiotics get prescribed, even when not needed. Every unnecessary dose trains bacteria to survive. Not tomorrow, not someday. Right now, we are breeding antibiotic-resistant organisms faster than we are developing new drugs to stop them. Medical journals have repeatedly warned. Common infections are becoming harder to treat. Routine surgeries are becoming riskier. Hospital-acquired infections are rising. And yet, the same antibiotics remain widely available, widely prescribed, and casually consumed. Why aren't stricter controls in place? Because antibiotics are cheap. Because they're familiar. Because restricting them would require systemic change. Instead of treating antibiotics as last resort weapons, they're treated like convenience tools. And the consequences won't show up in your medicine cabinet. They'll show up when antibiotics stop working altogether. That's not a future problem. That's a problem we're actively building. Sleep medications that sedate, not restore. Sleep is not optional. It is not a luxury. It is a biological repair process. Yet sleep medications are sold as if they simply turn sleep on, like flipping a switch. They don't. Most prescription and over-the-counter sleep drugs do not produce natural sleep. They induce sedation, a chemically altered state that looks like sleep from the outside but functions very differently inside the brain. Real sleep cycles through multiple stages. Light sleep, deep restorative sleep, REM sleep, where memory consolidation happens. Many sleep medications disrupt these stages, particularly REM sleep. So yes, you may fall asleep faster. Yes, you may stay unconscious longer. But the brain does not repair itself the same way. Long-term users frequently report memory problems, daytime brain fog, slower reaction times, emotional blunting, increased accident risk. And here's where it gets dangerous. The brain adapts. After repeated use, the drug becomes less effective. The dose gets increased. Stopping suddenly causes rebound insomnia, often worse than the original problem. This traps people in a loop. I can't sleep without it. Not because the condition remains, but because the brain has been conditioned. Sleep medications were originally intended for short-term crises. Acute stress, temporary schedule disruption, severe short-term insomnia. They were never designed for nightly, long-term use. Yet millions of people take them every night. Why aren't they banned? Because the harm is subtle. Because the damage is cognitive, not immediately fatal. Because society values productivity over neurological health. Sedation is easier than fixing stress, screens, schedules, anxiety, or lifestyle. So the pill stays. The problem deepens. Weight loss and metabolic drugs that promise shortcuts. This category repeats the same story over and over across decades. A new drug appears. It promises rapid weight loss. It's framed as a breakthrough. Then the pattern unfolds. Initial trials are short. Side effects appear manageable. Sales explode. Then real-world use begins. Longer exposure reveals elevated heart rate and blood pressure, mood changes and anxiety, hormonal disruption, dependency on the drug to maintain weight. Some medications alter appetite, signaling in the brain. Others affect insulin, metabolism, or nutrient absorption. None of them rewrite human biology safely. Weight is not just calories. It is hormones, sleep, stress, genetics, environment, and behavior. Trying to override that complexity with chemistry comes at a cost. And history proves it. Entire generations of weight loss drugs have been quietly withdrawn, restricted after damage was done, replaced by new and improved versions. Why does this keep happening? Because desperation is profitable. People want speed. Systems want scale. Companies want repeat customers. Regulators approve these drugs with post-market surveillance, knowing risks may emerge later. Later becomes too late for the people affected. These drugs don't fail because they're evil. They fail because they promise control over a system that resists shortcuts. And when the drug stops, the weight often returns, sometimes worse than before. The cycle continues. The packaging changes. The risk remains. Hormonal medications that reprogram the body long-term. Hormones are not accessories. They are command signals. They tell your body when to grow, when to burn energy, when to reproduce, when to rest, when to feel motivated, anxious, calm, or depressed. Changing hormone levels does not adjust one setting. It alters the entire system. Yet hormonal medications are often prescribed with the language of simplicity, regulates cycles, balances hormones, stabilizes symptoms. That language is misleading. Many widely used hormonal drugs were approved decades ago using smaller trial populations, shorter follow-up periods, less understanding of long-term endocrine effects. As larger and longer studies emerged, correlations appeared. Increased clotting risk, cardiovascular strain, elevated risk for certain cancers, long-term suppression of natural hormone production. Instead of banning these drugs, regulators did something far quieter. They added warnings. The drugs stayed. The responsibility shifted. Patients were rarely told how profoundly hormones affect brain chemistry, emotional regulation, metabolic health, long-term reproductive function. Stopping hormonal medication can trigger severe rebound symptoms, mood instability, hormonal crashes, prolonged recovery periods. Not because the body is broken, but because it adapted to an external chemical command. Hormonal medications can be life-changing when used carefully. They can also be life-altering when treated casually. The danger isn't the drug itself. The danger is how easily it becomes normalized. Combination medicines that multiply risks silently. This is the most underestimated category, and arguably the most dangerous. Combination medicines bundle multiple active ingredients into a single product. Painkillers, decongestants, cough suppressants, antihistamines, stimulants. On paper, each ingredient falls within safe limits. In reality, the body doesn't process paper. It processes load. When multiple compounds are introduced at once, they compete for liver metabolism, stress cardiovascular systems, interact unpredictably in the nervous system. This is how people overdose without realizing it. They take a cold medicine, a headache pill, something for allergies, Each contains overlapping ingredients. The label disclosed it, but clarity was never the goal. Hospitals see thousands of cases every year caused not by illegal drugs, but by stacking legal ones. Why aren't these products banned? Because they're convenient. Because they reduce shelf space. Because they sell simplicity. But simplicity at the cost of transparency is dangerous. Combination drugs don't just treat symptoms, they hide dosage awareness. And what you don't see is what hurts you. Why none of these are banned? The real reason. Let's say this clearly. These medicines survive not because they are harmless, but because banning them would disrupt the system. Banning them would force lifestyle-based solutions, reduce repeat purchases, challenge prescription norms, demand longer doctor-patient conversations. Warnings are cheaper than reform. Labels are safer than bans. Responsibility is easier to shift than accountability. So the system chooses the path of least resistance. And that path runs straight through the consumer. My last message to you. The most dangerous medicines aren't the ones you've never heard of. They're the ones you trust. They're the ones you've been told are safe enough. They're the ones that quietly become habits. They're the ones no one questions because everyone uses them. This isn't anti-medicine. This is pro-awareness. Medicine should serve health, not replace it. If this video changed how you think about what's in your medicine cabinet, hit the like button. It helps this reach people who need to hear it. Subscribe if you want clear, research-backed breakdowns without corporate filters. And comment below, which of these shocked you the most? Or which medicine do you think should have been banned years ago? Read the comments. That's where the real stories show up.